right. Well, welcome to our next episode of Wander Wisely. And we're going to have another great presentation here. And we're going to be heading to China for an amazing adventure in this episode. But first, a quick bit about us. We're Jason and Donna Miller. We're travel advisors with ET Family Travel, and we have our separate YouTube and travel blog that's pursuing travel with the Millers. And our goal is really to help people travel better, more informed, and see all the different options that you got out there. Because, I mean, for example, until I started learning about all the different ways to travel as a travel advisor, I didn't know how many different great ways you can travel. Like with Century Cruises, that we'll get into it a little bit further, but you have the river cruise, also have wonderful land packages, and just how much countries like China really have to offer. So, really, really going to be a cool presentation that's different than many other kind of travel and tours that you will find around the world. If you like luxury travel or budget travel, we can help with all of those kind of things and want people to travel within the way that they like things. So that is what our kind of goal here, and to show everyone that the world is a lot less scary than you think. Once you get out there, you just think, "Wow, now why didn't I do this, from the beginning?" Getting out and meeting all the amazing people out there, and you find that people are more alike than they are different. So that's another part of, once again, our wander wisely kind of mantra. So we every month we have a wander wisely. So for April, it's Century Cruises. Next month, we're going to be inviting Barbados. The tourism board of Barbados is going to come talk to us about their beautiful little island way out in the Atlantic, in the Antilles. And, home to people, like, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm not a huge, star expert, but I think Rihanna is from Barbados, if I remember correctly. So a lot of who will be doing that. And if you check out our YouTube, we also have, today is Tuesday, so we put out our food travel videos. Today's video was about Belgian chocolate, because just a couple of weeks ago we took a Belgian chocolate class while in Ghent, Belgium. So that was a pretty cool experience. I mean, I should probably lay off the chocolates, but hey, it's a pretty cool place to go. So, without further ado, let's get things started and talk about Century Cruises and all the amazing places that you can see in China. I mean, it's way more than just the Great Wall of China or, places like that. There's so much to see and do in this ancient and new all at once country, that you can get a little flavor of both. And you can actually see it in our picture here. You got Shanghai, and then you got the Great Wall of China. So you have both ends, the modern and the new. So I want to introduce, we have Steve, who's vice president of sales for Century Cruises, and Ivana, who are going to walk us through a few different topics. What is there to see in China? What is Century Cruises, and what kind of itineraries? And then we're also going to have a little question answer time. So, in between the different segments, if you have a question, and put it in the chat, and Donna and I will ask it. Otherwise, we're going to have kind of like a little interview session. So, Steve, you can go ahead and share, and let's take it away.
Awesome, Jason and Donna. Thank you so much for having us and giving us a chance to talk about Century Cruises. Before I share, there's one thing I think we need to get straight, and that is there is no reason anyone should avoid chocolate. Okay, Jason, I think you're good. Go for the chocolate. It's always something that you should definitely not ignore. That's for sure. So
Especially when in Belgium, for example.
absolutely. So, yeah, we're going to talk about China. I'm not sure if China is on your bucket list if you've thought about traveling to China, but it absolutely should be. And we're going to, as Jason said, the first section here, we're going to really talk about China and its appeal. And I'll share with you that I joined Century Cruises myself 14 months ago, and I have been to China 10 times in those 14 months. So it's a destination that is very quickly becoming a favorite of mine, and one that I really have come to love and really understand. Um, First of all, if any of you think of China and you think of places that if I were to poll you guys right now and say where would you want to go in China, what would you want to see, it'd probably be saying things like Great Wall of China. You would maybe want to see the Forbidden City, see the Terracotta Warriors that you see on your screen right now. But China is absolutely packed with a 5,000-year-old history, a number of ancient wonders, tremendous UNESCO World Heritage sites that are just filled throughout all of China. So any interest at all in history, China has its appeal. There's also a lot of ancient traditions, tea culture, things like that that are just weaved into the various sites that you will see and experience. But why China? Why would you think about China as a destination? Because where else can you walk the Great Wall at sunrise, feast on dumplings that melt in your mouth, marvel at neon lit megacities, and sip tea in a 1,000-year-old village, all in a single trip? And I might actually even go further and say that you could probably experience that all in one day. Um, so next, we wanted to go a little bit more about China in terms of, and Jason, you hit upon this really nicely in your intro. China has a fusion of past and future like nowhere else. Right here on your screen, you see the image actually that I'm using as my background for this presentation, but this is Chongqing in China. Not sure if you have ever heard of Chongqing. I will admit to you that I had never heard of Chongqing until I went for my job interview in 2024. And then I found out that it had a population of 34 million people, and it is actually considered to be the world's largest city, and yet we've never heard of it. So there's a lot of surprises in China as well. Besides these mega cities, you've got amazing little water towns. Our tours go to water towns near Shanghai, which are very different from the mega cities. There's ancient villages along the Yangtze River cruises. So lots of different opportunities to see things in China that you may not have even heard about. One of the surprises about China is that China is the kind of destination where each day when you wake up, that you will see or experience something that you have never experienced in your life before. And that remains true even to me, who has been to China 10 times. I still, every time I go, every day, there is something that surprises me. It's just the kind of destination that has one surprise after another. If any of you shop, China is a shopaholic's paradise. I think we're all familiar with the concept of made in China. So there's a lot of things in China, and it's not only cheap goods. Like it's not only the bargain hunting in the markets. If you are into high-end fashion, there's a lot of silk dresses in Shanghai. Great opportunity to get hand-painted art in Guilin. But China is absolutely a shopaholic's paradise. So if you are at all a shopper, China is a place you should not miss. And if any of you are foodies, it may surprise you. When we think of Chinese food, we think of the Chinese food in the restaurant in our hometown. And I know, Jason, you're in Houston. I'm sure you could come up with your favorite Chinese restaurant there. But I guarantee you that the cuisine that you will find in China will be very different than the restaurants that you've got back home. First of all, every region of China has a different cuisine. You've got in the Sichuan area like Chongqing, you've got spicy food. Cantonese area like Hong Kong has dim sum. Beijing is famous for its Beijing or Peking duck. But every province has a different story that they tell through food. And in China, the way you express love and care for someone is through food. So the Chinese in every city, the local guides, when they bring you to restaurants, they're really interested in making sure that you have a chance to try their food to make sure that you feel welcome. I expect in terms of China, you would not want to visit China without seeing a panda. So that is included on the majority of our tours. We actually take you to the Chongqing Zoo, home to 23 different pandas, including a baby panda that is only 6 months old right now. Of course, China has amazing natural landscapes and scenery. It's not just big cities and neon lights. You've probably heard of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. This was all born in China. So it's a deep dive into ancient philosophy and martial arts. Really, China is the kind of place that just has all kinds of natural beauty. And of course, the Yangtze River, where our cruise part is definitely another area where you'll have a chance to see a lot of that beauty. Now, in terms of the Chinese people, you will find that they are extremely welcoming. We recently had a guest in China, and this is what she said about the Chinese people. She said, I wasn't prepared for how friendly everyone was. Even with the language barrier, were kind, welcoming, and always willing to help. Communicating via the translator app on our phones and lots of gesturing made interactions fun. And as often as we were asking for photos, people were asking for ours too. These are all photos that I just took on my most recent trip with a group of guests from North America. You can see the smiles and the fun and the interaction. This is very much a part of travel. And Jason, you said it great. That connection of people to people is very important. And China remains a very authentic place in terms of connecting with different people. Now, a few other things, and then we're going to wrap up this segment, and I'll toss it back over to Jason for a little bit of just Q&A. First of all, China is a very safe, clean, and modern destination, of course, with a lot of historical twists. That may surprise you, right? We tend to, based on what we've heard, think of China as being, I don't know how they're going to welcome me, right? If you've been to any Chinatowns in North America, Chinatowns in North America, candidly, are oftentimes quite dirty and smelly. It may surprise you to find out that in China, these cities are absolutely spotlessly clean. And gone are the days of smog. That has all changed post-pandemic. You've got very modern, advanced infrastructures, and you're going to be very surprised at how secure and dependable of a destination it is. We talked on the previous slide a little bit about the welcoming culture, but people in China welcome travelers as guests. They're very proud of their country. They're very proud of their heritage, and they're very eager to share this with you. And they want to practice English with you. They want to take selfies with you. Again, you can see me here with some kids that I met in Beijing last month. Even the flight attendants, I actually caught them taking my picture, and I asked them to take their picture in return. So, and no need to worry about learning Chinese in advance. You'll find that in hotels and airports, signs are in English as well as Chinese. We have local guides in every city that make sure that they're there to help translate for you. We also have a tour director with you the entire time on your trip. And of course, AI technology today, everyone pulls out their phone in China and very, very quickly will use that to communicate with you. And if you have on your own phone Google Translate or Microsoft Translate, again, you'll find that that makes it just very, very easy to communicate. Now, the Yangtze River, you may not have thought of cruising on the Yangtze River. Maybe you wanted to see the Great Wall. Maybe you wanted to see the Forbidden City, the Terracotta Warriors. Well, none of those are along the Yangtze River. So, why would you want to see that? First of all, there's an area of China called the Three Gorges. It is what it sounds like. There's three different gorges that you go through, and it is, if pun intended here, absolutely gorgeous. This is stunning, dramatic cliffs. You can see it from the water level on the ship, but we also have a shore excursion that brings you to the summit of the Three Gorges, so you can actually look down. We talked earlier about history. You know, the Yangtze River flows right through the heartland of China. And so this is a front row seat to that ancient history. Lots of centuries old temples, legendary battlefields, historical sites that tie it all together. You may have heard of the Three Gorges Dam. It is the world's largest hydroelectric dam. It was a major Earth movement project. Actually, this project is believed to have slowed down the Earth's rotation by a few nanoseconds. At the end of the cruise, you have a chance to go to the Three Gorges Dam, the museum, and see that. And then, frankly speaking, it's a great chance to relax. Sightseeing in China is a very active experience. You'll get a lot of steps in. You're going to climb walls. You're going to go through cities. And then in the middle of it all, you have a chance to relax on this cruise ship from your balcony and really unwind in style. And it's a completely different side of China than China's very large cities. So, Jason, I'm going to stop our little presentation there. This is the end of our first section, and kind of go from there in terms of our next thing that we're going to talk about. Or I'm sure you've got some questions for us. I can't hear you for some reason.
I was on mute there for the on the my second mute button there, but yeah, let's talk about China for just a bit, and some of my kind of thoughts. I haven't been to China before myself. But some of the things you said just really are spot on for many areas in the world, especially ones that might not have as many U.S. travelers or Western travelers and things like that. So I was in, for example, Alexandria, Egypt, which it's not as tourist as, Luxor or Cairo or places like that, but I went to a mall, a local mall that was there, and went to the food court just to get a quick. And I had some interactions just like you were mentioning, and it's a great experience of of sharing cultures together, and just interacting with people because I had kids coming up just wanting to practice their English with me, asking me, "Sir, what is the time?" I mean, they had cell phones in their hand. They didn't need to know what the time was. They just wanted to talk to, wow, there's, an American that happens to be here, or a gentleman who just came up to me and says, "Are you from the U.S.?" Didn't know much English, but still was just wanting to interact. And I told him, well, I'm from Texas in the United States. And the funny kind of thing is he went, "Oh, Texas." Not really. It's not Old West in a lot of places now. But it's just those kind of interactions are great. So that's something that's really heartwarming in a way that in China. And I've found like a lot of the people from China that I have met, um, like I'll do a shout out here to my local Chinese restaurant Noodle Master in Pearland. that the most of the staff is from China, and they will translate with Google Translate and things like that, are just kind of listen in to learn a little bit more English, and are just so friendly. But a few kind of questions about, like, so I know some people might be thinking about logistically going to China. What is like the visa process generally like? And I know, like in your itineraries, you might talk about that. There's some itineraries where you don't even need a Chinese visa based on how long you stay there. Um, if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in general, a visa is required for China. There essentially is an application process. You do not actually need to appear in person at a consulate if you use a visa service. You can directly apply via the consulate, in which case you'd have to show up. But my recommendation is to use a visa service because it's a little bit easier for you. They take care of all of it for you. And the good news, because I know you're going to go to China and fall in love, is that the visa you'll get is valid for 10 years. So that just, and it just makes it very easy to continue going back and maybe even staying more the next time. But if you do not want to get a visa, there's a bit of a loophole that they've got that is called a visa-free transit visa. And that is if you spend 10 days, really 240 hours or less in China. And you arrange your airline tickets such that you're not essentially having a round trip flight from the same country. So you can't fly like US to China, China back to the US, but you can, for example, fly US to China, China to Japan, connect on a flight from Japan back into the US. You can do that. And if you do that, and if you stay less than 240 hours, they will grant you a visa-free admission. So we've actually got some tours that we've designed that spend 10 days in China and then go off to Japan to be able to see that destination all in one trip. There's another option that we've got that does China and then Vietnam. So there are some options for you if you want to avoid the visa. But honestly, again, it's not that difficult of the process. It's just a matter of really filling out an application, getting a picture, and then sending all of that with your passport into a visa service, and then you'll get that visa back pretty quickly. Within a few weeks' time, you'll get that.
Well, another kind of question about this is, I know this is a more personal kind of taste, but for example, here at the in Houston, where we're at, the Houston Museum of Natural Science, it has quite a few nice exhibits on China because I mean it has such a vibrant and long-lasting history. We just recently, a couple of weeks ago, saw an exhibit on the Terracotta Warriors where we were able to see just a few, like probably four or five of them, real Terracotta Warriors that they had sent over. And they even had an IMAX talking about the first emperor of China and the mound that is there that the warriors surround and protecting. So there's things like that, the Great Wall of China, and then I've seen an exhibit on the Forbidden Palace and just the expansive and beautiful place there. I mean, pictures can help with things, but don't necessarily do things justice. Them actually being there. Which of those sites would you say is the most, like in your opinion, amazing to go see? And you with Century, you can see them all, but if you picked one, which one's the most like you get there and you have that wow factor?
That's a really tough question, Jason, and I'm not going to completely answer your question in the way you want because I'm not going to be able to narrow it down. But I can tell you that, again, I just went to China last month and brought a group of 22 people to see a lot of these sites. When they got on the Great Wall, they literally just paused, and it was almost like a 30-second pause of like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm standing on the Great Wall. It's a place we've all heard about. that when you get there, you're like, wait a minute, I'm here. And I think that has that kind of impact. The Forbidden City, I think, surprises people because we see pictures of this front entrance of the Forbidden City, and we think you kind of go through those gates. If you've seen the movie The Last Emperor, you go through the gate where he goes through on the bicycle in that movie. And you think you get in there, and now you're in the Forbidden City. You don't realize that it's almost like an onion where there's layers upon layers upon layers, and it really is a city. It takes a good 2 hours and you still are not really seeing even half of the Forbidden City, right? So I think that is a big surprise to people of how massive of a place it really is. And again, there you are, right? You're in this place where all of this history took place. Um, and then we're going to go to the Terracotta Warriors for a third place because I think that's the one to truly answer your question the most accurately. I think the Terracotta Warriors are the place that people are just taken aback. It's something about that place, and it's very interesting. I don't want to be like a spoil alert here for you, but I guess I'm kind of a bit of a spoil alert. Um, it's much more than just warriors. This emperor that you described, he literally replicated everything that he saw in his life. He wanted to replicate that in his afterlife. So it's terracotta policemen, terracotta firefighters, terracotta acrobats, terracotta teachers. I mean, he has literally replicated everything, and I don't think people expect that. I think they're just thinking there's going to be some warriors there. The other thing, again, spoiler alert, but you discover that they've only unearthed about 10% of what they really believe to be there. They're intentionally not unearthing a lot of them because when they unearth them, they lose their color. They're actually colored. And they lose that. And so they're actually waiting for technology to catch up so that we can actually, preserve them a little bit more when we do that. And then I'm going to say one more thing. Sorry, Jason. As you can
Go
see,
for it.
I'm quite passionate about China, and I hope that shows, and I hope that's contagious. But the image behind me here, I talked about it before. This is Chongqing. This is one angle of Chongqing. I have tried so many ways to capture images, capture video of Chongqing at night to represent what you see when you're there, and I can't do it. You have to be there to see it. And I think the reason I'm answering that when you're asking this question now is because this is the surprise, right? You think Terracotta Warriors, you think Forbidden City, you think Great Wall, you don't think Chongqing. But let me tell you, it is going to be a fan favorite for sure.
Can say that, I mean, that answer doesn't really surprise me, to be honest, because if you ask me the same question about, Egypt or the in Central America, what's, the most amazing sight you've been or anything, it's tough to, because they're all different in their own way. And all encompass the culture of the country, our region, in all reality. And I can tell you from my personal kind of experience that when I went to, as a kid, went to Disney World, went to Epcot, which is my favorite park even to this day, because as a kid, I loved going to all the different countries of the World Showcase and dreaming about, man, I hope someday I can make it to these countries. And China is there with the temple that you walk up to. And I forget the name of the temple, but the you walk up and there's a temple and everything like that. And then of course you're right, the food of China is just so wide. Just such a wide variety of cuisine and things like that. And the Chinese food that we have here in the United States can be quite Americanized. I've heard that General Tso's chicken, not really, really too much of a true Chinese kind of, it's good, but not necessarily true ish Chinese kind of cooking. So it'd be for a foodie, you can really explore all over China.
And on that note, Jason, I do want to assure folks that you will find something to eat, right? A lot of people think, oh my God, I'm going to go to China, I'm going to be hungry, right? And a lot of time when bring these groups with me, I've seen people they admit to me that they bring like protein bars and crackers with them, and they're expecting to dig into that, because they're hungry. And every time they tell me at the end, they're going back home with unopened protein bars, unopened crackers, because they always found something to eat. They were never left hungry. You do obviously have a chance to try some things you've never thought about before, but you will always find food that you can eat.
Hey, and it's good to be adventurous too. I mean, we've tried different things from all over the world, from some things that we thought was, pretty good to like the cuy in Peru, the guinea pig. Not necessarily our cup of tea, or the jacarl, which is the rotted shark in Iceland. Could maybe do with not trying it again, but hey, it's part of the adventure. That you only live once, so hey, give it a shot, and try the different kind of foods and things like that. You might find, like we found in some of the countries we visited, man, this is now one of my favorite kind of foods, and I'd never tried it until I actually got there. So that's all part of the journey. Last thing before we move on to the next segment and get into Century itself is that you've already generally kind of talked about it. A lot of people like in the U.S. and around the world watch the news and see like, the more of the kind of dread and things like that around the world. Um, when it comes to China, you mentioned the friendliness of the people. Could you just expound on that a little bit, how they react to U.S. visitors? I mean, we already talked a little bit about that, but it sure seems like the average person's more inquisitive and friendly than standoffish.
Yes, absolutely. It's travel to China is a very eye-opening experience. And in fact, I've learned a lot about my own country through my travel to China. And we oftentimes hear of, oh, China, their people are controlled, the people, there are antagonists, right? There are competition, all that kind of thing. So I think, naturally assume that the Chinese people must be told the same thing about us. But that's not true. The Chinese people simply are told that China is amazing and that we've got a great country you should be proud of. And so you see a lot of pride in the Chinese people, but you don't see anything negative that they have about Americans. And in fact, they're, as we talked about, they're very, very curious about connecting with Americans. The other thing that I think surprises a lot of people is that we have an impression of China. My mother, I'll just bring my mother up. I hope she's not watching this on YouTube. She'll hate me for bringing her up. But, the first time I went to China, my mother says, so you're going to spend time with all those farmers wearing all those gray suits? And I think that's kind of the impression we've got, because that was China in the 1950s. China's come a long way. Look at behind me. This is not the farmers are doing really, really well here, right? We think again of a communist country being all sort of gray and dull and things like that. But you will see so many independent businesses, people on the street selling oranges, small little markets with mom and pop shops. It may be a communist country, but they definitely have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit going on there, and the people are very, very happy. The China has built an amazing infrastructure. It's extremely safe. Again, we hear about oh, China, they're watching you with cameras everywhere. Well, guess what? When they're watching you with cameras everywhere, and by the way, not that we don't have cameras in our own country, we just don't talk about it, right? But when they're watching you with cameras, guess what? People behave. There is very little crime. I found a cell phone on the floor of baggage claim in an airport. I picked it up, brought it to a security guard, and I said, is there a lost and found? Do you want to take this? And he, obviously through a translator app, but he looks at me and he says, well, he looked very confused and he says, well, it says, put it back where you found it. And I looked confused and I said, well, but I found it on the floor in front of the baggage claim. He goes, yeah, well, that's where someone would go to look for it. And I said, well, won't someone take it? And then he gets confused again. He goes, why would someone take it? Right. So it's a very, very safe environment. And again, obviously, as travelers from America, we want a little bit of a bubble. We want to experience and touch and connect with the people, but we also want to travel in this little bit of a safety net. We find that as time goes on in the tours, people are wanting to explore a little bit more. They're going to kind of want to get out of that bubble, but certainly in the beginning, they want that safety net as they get used to it. Usually it takes about 2 days, and all of a sudden people are like, wait, this is not what I was expecting. But this is where our tour guides come into play. This is where our tour director comes into play. Our tour directors, you have one tour director that is with the group the entire time throughout the entire trip. That person goes with you into the airport to check on it, help you check in for your domestic flights, help you check in for the trains, connects you to the next local guide. So you have that safety net of that tour director with you the entire time.
One. So let's talk about Century. So go to the next section of things and let's see what the cruise line has to offer.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen again with us here. And we're going to jump into the current slide. There you go. You should be able to see one of our ships sailing under the river. And I do want to point out that, you probably have this already figured out. But yes, we're a cruise line, but we're a little bit more of a tour operator. And we talked a bit, and we'll talk in the third section a little bit more about the itineraries. But as a cruise line, you may be surprised that our ships are relatively large, particularly for river ships. If you've heard or traveled on any river ships in Europe, you may realize that they only carry about 150 to 200 guests. Our ships in China are 600 guests and about 6 decks high. They're almost like a very small ocean-going ship, and that's because the bridges in China on the Yangtze River are higher. As you can see here, the rivers are a little bit wider, so you're on a much more expansive ship with a lot more facilities. We obviously are a 5-star line. It's a very luxurious experience on the ship, very, very comfortable environment. We do pride ourselves on our elegance, on our exclusivity. It's definitely a very sophisticated and refined environment on board. In terms of how we approach itineraries, we really touched upon this earlier, but we really encourage our guests to deeply engage with the culture, history, and natural wonders of the destination. We actually do that on board. I'm going to go back to this previous slide here. You see some dancers wearing traditional costumes. We actually have that throughout our ship. So you really are immersed into that history. And then, of course, 5-star service every step of the way, whether that be on board the ship or actually on land. We're staying also in 5-star hotels on land. So this is exceptional service. The crew are extremely friendly. My favorite story about our crew is I had gotten some noodles from the buffet, and one of the noodles kind of came down onto my shirt. And I didn't even notice it, but the crew whisked me away into a corner and immediately pulled out like a Tide Pod and started cleaning my shirt before I even noticed it, because they wanted to make sure that I was not embarrassed by that. Very, very friendly crew. And then lastly, sustainability and responsibility, very important to us as well. That's very important to us because we are sailing in the Yangtze River in a beautiful natural environment. And so our ships are actually sort of electric propulsion, battery propulsion that is very, very low in terms of any kind of emissions. This is a little bit more of a schematic of what our ship looks like. All of the rooms on board our ships are actually balcony staterooms. There's no inside staterooms that we sell. There's no ocean view staterooms. You will always have a balcony. You'll notice in the back of the ship, this is where all of the public areas are. They all have floor-to-ceiling windows for beautiful views of the river. There are two different dining rooms. There's a dining room for guests in the upper categories, and then there's the normal dining room. There's a full bar and lounge. There's a karaoke room. There is a fitness center. There is mahjong room. If any of you play mahjong, mahjong is becoming quite popular in the U.S. There's a theater where we do shows. And then this one of the things that's very unique about our ships that no one else in the Yangtze River has, surprisingly, is this top observation deck. It's a great chance to really explore and see the river as we're passing by. Moving a little bit more forward on the ship, you'll see there's this panorama cafe area, and there's an inside and outside area of that that's also available for guests in the upper categories. All meals are included, not only on our ship, but by the way, but also on land as well. As I mentioned, there is a separate VIP dining area for guests in the upper categories. Meals on board our ships are served as a buffet style. There is one dinner where you'll actually have a menu, but for the most part, we serve it buffet. We actually call that Chinese family style. Because of the nature of Chinese food, you may want to try a lot of different things. And if we had sort of a sit-down menu, you might be afraid, what if I order the wrong thing? Or maybe I want to try a few different things. This buffet allows us to do that. On land, we actually do it lazy Susan style, where the dishes keep coming one after another. There's an opportunity on board for a hot pot lunch. Which is actually comes from the Sichuan area from Chongqing, which is where you actually will start the cruise portion. And then there's a full service bar as well. In terms of activities on board, there's a number of informative talks about the Yangtze River. There's a show that we do called Tales of the Yangtze. Really almost tear-jerking show. The crew warned me when I saw it last month that I might cry, and I did at one point almost become quite teary-eyed. It's filled with a lot of romance, a lot of history, tells the story about the river in a very, very unique way. Tai Chi, if you ever wanted to learn or try Tai Chi, there's morning Tai Chi classes, calligraphy classes. We mentioned the karaoke and mahjong rooms. And even when traveling with family, there's actually a kids' play area. There's a great gift shop on board. There's a fitness center, and there's an amazing spa with wonderful prices. You will be shocked at the prices. About 25% of what you'd pay on land. I'm going to show a video now that will walk you through what our ship looks like. So you can see there that it's a very, very elegant ship. I'm going to move on to the next slide. By the way, that dancer that you saw in the video is actually one of our crew members. So our crew members are indeed very, very multi-talented. Wanted to just quickly run through a little bit of the cabins and the cabin sizes for you so you have an idea of what that looks like. This is our standard deluxe cabin. This is the smallest cabin we have on the ship. And it is much larger than most river ships. And as I mentioned before, they come with a private veranda. It's 279 square feet, so a very, very nice size stateroom for being the entry level category. We do have some family cabins. We've got the panda theme, we've got Hello Kitty. These are a little bit larger at 365 square feet for family cabins. A really nice upgrade for you. And you'll find that when we look at the pricing later on, that to upgrade to the executive suites is very affordable. It's a small difference in price because you're only upgrading for the cruise portion, which is usually about 3 nights of your 2-week trip in China. These are 409 square feet, a much larger bathroom, upgraded amenities, and this gets you access to the VIP dining area as well as the VIP lounge and the forward deck. So a great opportunity for you to use an upgrade. And then if you have a little bit more interest and a little bit more space, of course, our presidential suites at 915 square feet, hot tub within your room, private exterior balcony, wonderful sitting area. There's 2 of these on board the ships as well. And as we talked a lot about the cruise, but again, when we get to the itinerary section, which is the third section of our presentation today, you'll find that we do spend a lot of time on land. We've talked a little bit about that before. But these are images of an example of a hotel that we use. This is the Hyatt Regency in Beijing. All our hotels are modern and have 5-star comfort, the same high standards as our ships. Another hotel that we use is the JW Marriott, which is located in Chongqing. And as you can see, you'll definitely be staying in this sort of upscale modern hospitality. So I'm going to stop sharing there because we now are entering into the that stop share. Yep, there we go. I'm back. And Jason, let's see if we have any questions that you want to talk about in terms of Century Cruises or the cruise experience.
Okay, I'm going to ask the questions for this part.
Donna's coming in here.
It's because I'm a cruise lover, so.
Perfect.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Okay, so I guess my first question is I have a lot of clients that have like 2 adults and a teenager. Like they wouldn't necessarily want a Hello Kitty room. Is there any rooms that will fit 3 that are not the Hello Kitty panda rooms?
Yes, absolutely. Some of the standard rooms actually can fit 3. My recommendation, though, would be to move to the executive suite. Again, you're probably looking at about only an upgrade cost of about $300 total to upgrade to that. And that will give you a little bit more space as well, so that by the end of the trip, your teenager gets along with you.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice there. What is actually included with the cruise? Like, is this going to include excursions or is that extra?
No, great question. Actually, you'll find that our cruise tours are actually extremely inclusive. And I'm gonna, I know your question was about the cruise, but let me sort of answer this in its entirety. So, our cruise tour pricing, and again, when we get to the itineraries, this will make a little bit more sense, because, frankly speaking, let's be candid. I don't think many people will come to China and just take a cruise only. They're going to want to see the Great Wall. They're going to want to see the Forbidden City, all of this stuff, which you need to do the land portion to see, right? So our cruise tour pricing includes all of your transfers. The moment you arrive at the airport, we whisk you off to your hotel, all of your domestic flights between the different cities, all of your meals on land, on the cruise, beer and wine with those meals on board the cruise as well as on land. Wi-Fi in the hotel, Wi-Fi on the ships. It includes the shore excursions from the ships as well. All of your shore excursions are included. There's even a couple of hours in the evening, usually between 6 and 8:30 p.m., where even there's an open bar where most of the drinks are included. Really, the only thing that you would be responsible for would be like maybe shopping in the gift shop, any spa treatments that you might have, and gratuities for our staff as well as for your tour guides. But with the meals being included and all of that, and in fact, right now our promotions are that we include the international air from 5 cities in the U.S. and Canada. So really, the pricing is really inclusive.
So it's a truly all-inclusive experience, basically.
Absolutely.
Okay. Um, when do you think is the best time to do one of these tours? I would think probably I like personally to travel in the winter, but I know spring and fall are better usually in
Yeah.
terms of weather. Like which do you think is better in China? Is it spring or fall time? Because
You,
I think of like the flowers. I really like that part of being there in the spring, but what about fall? What's different about that?
Yeah, you nailed it. You got it. So, certainly spring and fall are the most popular times for North American travelers to visit. You mentioned the flowers. I was just there in the middle of March. We saw some, but you could actually now some of my friends in China are actually sending me pictures and saying you just missed it. And there's a lot of flowers throughout China. It will surprise you, but when I go to like Canada, like Vancouver or Toronto or Quebec, you always see like the cities are just lined with planters and flowers and things like that. That's what you see in China as well, right? So certainly the spring from that standpoint. Weather-wise, really anytime from about the middle of March up until like the beginning of June, and then again starting in like middle of September, October, November, you're going to find that it's reasonable temperatures. Now, you guys are from Houston. So I will tell you that a Houston summer, not much different from a summer in China. You've got the humidity, you've got the heat. Now a winter in China is going to be much colder than a winter in Houston. But your summers, if you can handle a summer in Houston or Louisiana or whatever, you can absolutely handle a summer in China. But most people avoid it. And frankly, the summer in China is also summer holidays for the domestic market. And so sites tend to be a little bit more crowded in the summertime with domestic tourists, and a little bit less so in the spring and the fall. We do operate pretty much year round, with the exception of Chinese New Year week. We don't really sell in North America many of the winter dates. Frankly, Beijing in the winter time in December, January is going to be, sub freezing temperatures, and I don't think you really want to spend your holiday that way.
Okay. And one last question. If excuse me, um, I don't know, I've lost it.
Well, I can the interesting thing that
Oh, Jason, you got muted with that mute there.
yeah, the interesting thing, switching mics here. The interesting thing that I kind of find that just all the amenities that are on the ship, like with the theater and for like you mentioned, for an average river cruise, um, that you don't usually have. You have the lounge, but not a full theater, and all the different kind of options. So that's something that's pretty cool to me. That's less of a question and more of just an observation that I saw. The question that we're gonna ask, and um, the Just talking about some of the, that there's quite a few steps involved in a lot of places and, climbing upstairs and things. Is there like excursions that are available that are less demanding for people with mobility issues, or how does that really kind of work helping those that aren't necessarily, the necessarily into the extreme kind of tours. And
Yeah,
I
no,
meaning just not extreme as in going zip lining or something. Just a little more walking and things involved.
sure. That's a great question, Jason, and I'm gonna answer it probably as a bit directly here in that sense. And as I mentioned, I was just in China on last month, and we actually had one of our travelers. I've never thought about this, but they literally tracked it. That over the course of 12 days, we walked 56 miles on our trip. So there's definitely you do need to be active. Great Wall. There's a funicular that brings you up pretty close to the Great Wall, but to get up on the wall, you're going to have definitely some flights of steps to get up on the wall. If you want to see more than just the spot of the wall, you're going to have to walk up and see more. The Forbidden City, as I mentioned, it's a one place after another. There's a lot of walking there. And then the river, the Yangtze River itself, on those stops, the ship is fairly down low in the river, and to get up onto the land side, there are also steps up there as well. Now, there are ways that we can assist some guests on and off the ship. But if you're using a wheelchair, China is not for you. If you are using a walker, China is not for you. You do need to be fairly physically able. Now, can you stay on the ship and avoid seeing some of these sites if it's a little bit much for you? Absolutely. And in fact, we do design the cruise portion to be, when we talk about this next section, you're going to see the cruise portion is in the middle. So that's a chance for you to sort of rest and recuperate from all the go, go, go in the beginning and all the go, go, go at the end. But it is, frankly, you can always, of course, stay behind the hotel if that day sounds like it's going to be a little bit more active for you. But if you really want to see it, you do need to be pretty active. And that's unfortunately a bit of a fact of life. China is not ADA compliant like the US. There's steps involved, and you will have a lot of walking involved. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at this kind of a trip.
No. So, and the joke I was going to make was they didn't build an escalator up to the top of the Great Wall of China, and I'm kidding about that. This is not going to mess up a historic site doing that. So I guess let's take a look at the itineraries now.
Yeah, great. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Right back into that. Oh, so give me 1 second. I was going to start all over again. I think we've covered that enough. Let's jump back into the itinerary section. So there we go. So I'm going to use as an example a 14-day Legend of China cruise tour. I am going to start out with a video that walks you through a 19-day trip, but then I'll sort of walk you through what the 14-day looks like. This is literally, I'm going to walk you through 19 days here in about 2.5 minutes. So that was the 19-day trip, and I'll explain that difference in a minute. But let's just walk through a typical cruise tour. Our most popular is our 14-day Legend of China cruise tour. You will fly internationally from your hometown into Beijing. Your first night at the hotel, obviously you check in, you're met by our guide, transfers you to the hotel, and you overnight. The next day, you will generally go off to the Great Wall in the morning, and then come back and see probably the Forbidden City in the afternoon. The next day, you will see the Temple of Heaven and have a chance to get into the hutongs. The hutongs are the surprise, if you will, in Beijing. It's my favorite part of Beijing, honestly. They're the sort of the traditional side alleys, if you will. It's a really chance to see what local life still looks like today in Beijing. And of course, while you're in Beijing, you will experience authentic Peking duck. On our tour section, when you're on the land portion, you'll be traveling with as I mentioned, a local guide and a tour director. You're traveling with about 30 to 35 other guests on a motor coach tour. The coach holds usually about 50 people, but we only put about 30 to 35 on board. And you'll be traveling only with North American guests. We only sell the land portion that you're traveling with to other guests from North America. After your 3 nights in Beijing, you then fly to Xi'an. There's no long road trips on a motor coach on this tour. You will always be flying between cities. It's about a 2-hour flight typically between cities. So you land in Xi'an. You will have a chance that first day usually to see the historic walled city. You'll have a evening show related to the Tang Dynasty. Then you overnight in Xi'an. The next morning, you will go out and see the Terracotta Warriors in the morning. In the afternoon, you come back into the city. You see the Goose Pagoda, which is a Buddhist temple, one of the most peaceful places I have ever been. Then that evening, you'll have a dumplings feast. Xi'an is very, very famous for their dumplings. Although every city in China will tell you that they've got the best dumplings, but personally, Xi'an, in my opinion, has that all set. You then fly, or depending on the date, you may take a high-speed train over to Chongqing. Chongqing is this futuristic 8D city we've talked about. It's here where you have the chance to see the pandas, the evening lights. You overnight in Chongqing before boarding your ship the next day, and that allows you to explore the city a little bit before you get a chance to embark the ship. Then there you have a 3-night Yangtze River cruise, as we talked about. I think you have a sense of what the cruise looks like. All the shore excursions are included. There's actually about 2 stops every day on that Yangtze River cruise, so you do a chance to explore. Obviously, some people choose just to stay on the ship and relax. Other people want to see as much as possible and they go out on the excursions. You saw a brief snippet of it in the video. There's an amazing show called the Three Kingdoms show one evening that's included as well. So you have that 3 nights on the Yangtze River cruise, going through the 3 gorges, seeing these small river towns. Your cruise ends in Yichang, where you have the Three Gorges Dam. And then we take you to Jingzhou, where you have an authentic countryside experience. The next morning, you go back to Yichang and you fly to Shanghai, where you have 2 nights in Shanghai to really explore the colonial history there, do some shopping perhaps along Nanjing Road, explore the Bund, which is the river front. And we do take you on an evening river cruise, not on one of our ships, but on a more of a sightseeing boat along the Huangpu River, which is where you've seen all of these amazing sights of the view of the Bund, of the Pudong area. So you have a chance to see that as well. And that's where your 14-day cruise tour ends, and you'd fly back home from Shanghai. If you do the 19-day that we saw on the video just a few moments ago, this 14-day cruise tour continues on, and it goes down to Yangshuo and Guilin, which is where you see those beautiful mountains, the Li River. If you've seen any of the Chinese paintings there, that's where you would see that. That's the experience in Guilin, and then it continues there down to Hong Kong. So that's a little bit more comprehensive, but that's 19 days. And then, as we mentioned, we've got the cruise tours that are the visa-free cruise tours that go onto China, onto Japan or Vietnam. The key thing about these cruise tours, as we've talked about, elegant accommodations, five-star hotels, fully escorted throughout the entire time. In the center there, you see Arnold. Arnold is my favorite tour director. You'll have either Arnold or someone like Arnold with you. All of these inclusions we talked about, all the domestic flights. It's just really travel made beautifully simple. And it's with one single operator. You're not going on the cruise with one company and then checking into the hotel with another. We are with you every step of the way. So we really look forward to welcoming you to China. I'm going to stop the presentation here, and I'm sure Jason and Donna, you've got some questions for us about the itinerary section, but that gives you a little bit of an idea of what a typical tour would look like.
Yeah, and it looks like a great tour that goes to you get to see wide variety of area of China, and really like the idea of you have the flights. It's a seamless, so it's kind of seems like it's a kind of tour that once you arrive, everything's good. That I mean, the Century will take you through the country. And for a country that's not, that, people, I mean, every country is foreign if you look at the sense of the word there, but a place that might be a bit more of a culture shock than visiting Europe or, Cancun or something like that. It's great to have a good company by your side as you're going through that and you become more comfortable, like you mentioned earlier. And that's what I've found, as when we travel, that it makes a huge difference when you're going through there. When it comes to the tour, so like if you want you can if you wanted to, like just like on an add-on for, say you're in Southeast Asia, and you want to add on the Yangtze River cruise, you can just do the cruise portion if you so choose.
That is correct. And we've got, from a cruise only standpoint, the cruise that's included in the cruise tour is a 3-night cruise from Chongqing to Yichang. You can do that as cruise only. You can also do the reverse. You can get on the ship at Yichang, the dam area, and sail back upriver. So a little bit slower because you're going against the stream, if you will. And so that's 4 nights. And then we are the only cruise line that actually has a cruise from Chongqing all the way through the Three Gorges, through the Three Gorges Dam. You actually go through the locks, and then you go to some other smaller river towns. It actually stops in Nanjing. Nanjing, by the way, is kind of like the Philadelphia of China. It's where you have a lot of the historic sites related to China's founding are in Nanjing, and then the cruise ends in Shanghai, actually along the ocean. So you literally follow all the navigable part of the Yangtze River, and that's 10 nights downstream or 11 nights upstream. So those are all available as cruise only options as well. So if you have been to China before, maybe you've been to Shanghai, Beijing, and you want to see a little bit something different, those are available to you as well.
Can you take pieces of the land tours, or is it all one? Like, say you wanted to do the Beijing side, and the Terracotta Warriors, and put the cruise, but that you're short of time and needed to head on. How customizable are those?
For the most part, we do stick to our published itineraries.
Okay.
You could do the cruise tour only, or you could do the cruise only, but we don't really act as a sort of independent tour operator, if you will. Now, if you come to us with a group of 15, 20 people, and you say this is what we want to do as a group, then we can customize from a group setting. But from the standpoint of just a a small family traveling, we would need to have you follow our published departures.
Sounds great. I think that that's all the questions that we have for now. We're a bit over time, but hey, we got carried away talking about all the amazing things that you can do in China. So hey, it's all good to me. And the I spun the wheel, by the way, and Ivan is the winner for the $50 Delta gift card that we
Nice job.
got there.
Ivan's odds
Um,
were pretty good.
yeah, exactly. For this one, he it was a good deal. It varies every single time, but yeah, Century looks wonderful with like a great way to travel, luxury and ease in China, and see a wonderful culture, the historic sites and things in a easy kind of way. Because I can imagine the stories from clients and things that you have of really immersing yourselves in the culture, the historic sites, and taking some time to relax on the river. So I definitely um, encourage people to give Century Cruises a look and give China a look. I can tell you that we will in the future definitely be looking to take a look and explore. We have not yet. The furthest into Asia we've been so far is the Middle East. We haven't gone into. We've been to over 80 countries, but we need to get into China, Southeast Asia, and that kind of area. So that's kind of our, I guess you would, in a way, final frontier that we need to eventually knock down and check out. So
Well, Jason, you and your clients have a friend that can help with that. So there you go.
absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely be contact us with ET Family Travel, because as you can see, we know the good folks at Century Cruises, so we can help plan your trip to China or anywhere else in the world. So, with that being said, thank you very much, Steve and Ivana, for joining us today. And next month, like I said, we're going to be talking with Barbados. So I'll put that date out for that Wander Wisely presentation. And for any of you watching on YouTube, join us in person, or if you can't make it to that, after a couple of days after the session is done, you'll see it on YouTube and be able to watch it there. So thanks again, and you all have a great evening.
Thank you both. Bye now.